is Volunteer MBC and why we're here today. So Volunteer MBC is the local volunteer center for Mississauga, Brampton, Caledon. It is totally okay if you're not from this region because our session today is pretty universal. And really our goal is to help have purposeful connections between people and some of the causes that exist in our community. So, for example, we're a registered charity that has existed for about 12 years. And our goal through our volunteer service and support to non-for-profits is to provide you with the opportunities to volunteer and those non-for-profits to get connected with the right people. So we do this through our member base. We have over 150 non-for-profit organizations in Peel that are connected with us. And their opportunities get channeled into sort of our database, which you can access at volunteermbc.org. And we're also an active member of volunteer centers across Canada through Volunteer Canada. So that's just a little bit about us and a little bit more about what exactly we do. So next slide. So we facilitate sort of meaningful volunteer involvement. So it's really about connecting people to causes. And so there's the volunteer facing front, which is what we're talking about today, is how to get connected to volunteering. We also really help recognize volunteers and the great work you're doing. I know that we have a volunteer Oscars event coming up this fall, and we actually award volunteers and sort of recognize them and promote volunteers in schools and things like that. And on the organizational side, we also provide training to non-for-profits in helping them manage volunteers and sort of assemble young people. I also want to say hello to everybody who's just joining in and letting you know that we've started sort of our session and we're welcome. We're just in the introduction phase, so welcome on board. I'm just talking a little bit about Volunteer MBC, which is our local volunteer center. And we also help support volunteer community-led initiatives, and that's why we're going to be talking about some youth-led initiatives today as well. Just for context, I'm a summer student with Volunteer MBC till sort of the end of August, and I've been really lucky that when I was in high school, I was able to engage with Volunteer MBC because they supported me in launching a project that I wanted to do, so they're really, at the end of the day, the message, if anything you get out of this, is that Volunteer MBC is here for you as a young person and supporting you in meeting your goals and finding sort of a volunteer opportunity that speaks to you. And they did that for me, so that's why I want to kind of share that with you today. And just quickly, our crisis response during COVID has been around helping organizations collaborate and share resources, focusing on sort of deploying volunteers where they're needed. So we had a call out for COVID-specific volunteer roles, and we're really helping organizations develop virtual roles right now. It can be challenging, and we ask you to be patient. And I know you're here because you're interested in being involved and maybe have found some challenges in finding opportunities that are appropriate for you. So we've been working on that diligently during the COVID pandemic and providing training to make sure that everybody's safe while volunteering. I hear some couple more buzzes coming in, so welcome to everybody who's just joined us. We are now moving on to our guest speaker. I just gave an intro, so I'm going to ask Charmaine and Eliza to unmute their mics, and they're going to take us through sort of their initiative, Caring and Connecting Pen Pal initiative, and how they were able to successfully launch that. I am going to ask both of you when you want to switch the slide to just say next slide, and I'll change it for you.
Great, thank you, Sarah.
Great.
Yep, we're good to go.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Eliza Prodnik, and also on this call is Charmaine Holland, and we are the co-organizers of the Caring and Connecting Pen Pal initiative. So today we're going to be talking about playing to your strengths. So really how to turn an idea into success. So next, please, Abira.
Sorry, it's a little bit slow, but it will, I think it will change.
So I'll just keep talking. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is our initiative timeline. So really who we are. So in March, when quarantine measures were coming into effect, especially in Ontario, me and Charmaine, like many of you here, we're looking for a way to participate and give back to our community. A lot of our regular volunteer opportunities had stopped because they were unable to happen during a time of social isolation. So me and Charmaine came together and we identified what the main problem that we could address was, which was social isolation. Next, the solution we came to was, first we had to combine our skills. Charmaine is an aspiring geriatric doctor, and I'm a professional writer. So the best way for us to combine those skills was through a virtual service of providing one-way and hopefully two-way letters of kindness to seniors in long-term care homes. So since starting that initiative, it's really grown it from what was a local project to a national initiative. So we've made connections, obtained volunteer, had media attention, received volunteers and hundreds of letters from all over the country. And now in August of 2020, we have a team of 5 people. We're constantly expanding, and we're looking to embed ourselves as a long-term initiative. So next, please. So while that's loading, just the next slide is about the trial and errors of this project. This did not come without our problems. Me and Charmaine walked into this not knowing how to start an initiative at all. We've volunteered in the past. We knew a tiny bit about the structure, but we really did take the long way around. So for those who are interested in starting their own project or really getting involved in one that they've already found or are interested in, we're just going to talk quickly about 6 steps that we have developed in order to make a successful project. So I'm going to hand it over to Charmaine now, if you could switch the slides, and she's going to talk about that first step.
Thank you so much, Eliza. Okay, so the first step in our 6-step program is to identify your passion. So you may be asking yourself, where do I start? And just so you know, before I get into this, although we're talking about and guiding you how to start your own initiative, this Venn diagram in this process can also be useful for those of you seeking pre-existing initiatives to get involved with as well. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, so the first step that we have realized is beneficial is to look at your interests. So for example, for me, as Eliza said, I'm really passionate about older adults. I'm wanting to be a geriatric doctor, and they just have a really close place in my heart. So that was my interest. And for Eliza, she's a professional writer. That is her passion. She really enjoys that. So just make sure to really understand what interests that you have and what's meaningful to you. The next thing would be to look at issues that are present in today's society. So what are some topical and pertinent issues around you? And for us, and for everyone right now, it's definitely the pandemic, although there are a lot of other issues, but there's a lot of issues that are kind of coming out from the pandemic that is happening. And so I myself identified social isolation in older adults. Eliza also knew that this was a huge issue. And loneliness in older adults because of the lockdowns and the lack of visitors in long-term care, right? So just kind of fleshing out the issues that are happening currently is also a very good strategy. And the third step would be to kind of understand your capabilities. So ours, well, me specifically, I have had previous experience with older adults. I have a lot of connections with long-term care homes and retirement residences, because I have worked them and also volunteered with them previously. I was a part of the McMaster Alzheimer's Society. So just, and I also enjoy communicating with community partners. And with Eliza, she is fabulous with managing social media. She has phenomenal organizational as well as administrative skills. And she's a fantastic writer, and her editing and formatting skills are also like superb. So just understanding your capabilities and your strengths is what you need to do as well. And where all of these things, all these 3 things intersect, that's where your perfect project is. So you can go to the next slide if you'd like.
So the second step is create a plan of action. So on the screen, you're going to see a little roadmap we created. So it really shows you, how do I start? The next slide, please. So this roadmap really shows you, once that switches, that I'm going to show you how to switch that idea to reality. So we could switch the slide again. So along your road of success, the first thing you need to do is simplify your service. So there's always room to grow, but the first thing you need to do is make sure that you are offering something that is simplistic and easy to follow. For us, it is as simple as a volunteer writes us a letter, and we send that letter to care facilities where they are received by the older adults. So it is extremely simple. It's on both ends. Everyone is happy. So on next slide, the next part of the roadmap is method. So really, you got to think about your method of delivery. For us, during a global pandemic, our method was really about how do we run a whole initiative from a Gmail account. So that's really what that's focused on. That might look differently for you depending on what your project looks like. Next is your resources. So how to take advantage of, first of all, the connections you already have. If you're in high school, it might be a counselor or a teacher in university. That might be a professor or another non-for-profit, or just everything in that realm. And next slide. The next thing on that roadmap of success is creating goals. So long-term and short-term goals. So first, like, where are you going to be a week from now, but also where are you going to be 4 months from now? That was really important. First, as Charmaine as my accountability partner to be able to make those goals, but also like our long-term goals. One thing we really wanted was to be featured on CBC so we could expand our horizons and gain a lot of more volunteers, which we did achieve, luckily. The last thing on that road to success, as you switch the slide, is promotion. So before you hit start on that project, you need to share it and ask your friends and your family and their friends and family to share it, so you get this web of support. And once that happens, that is go time for your initiative, and it really gets the ball rolling. So if you switch the slide, the next step 3, is dedicating time for success. So how do I gain momentum? Momentum is like pushing a rock uphill, and it's hard at first, but eventually it gets easier as you get stronger, and it starts to roll on its own. So part of dedicating that time to success, you need to treat this like it's your baby. So that's hard work that happens through dedication to the cause. Next slide. That is through branding, which is something really important to talk about. So everything from your logo to your color scheme to the way that you talk on social media to the way you talk to your volunteers, it helps to create brand recognition and also something that people can trust. So for us, we use a lot of phrases like sharing smiles and letters of kindness. And that really resonates with the purpose and intent behind the initiative. And the last one is setting a precedent. So we really want to set a precedent as a compassionate initiative of kindness. And we want to make sure that permeates everything that we do. So in the next slide, I'm going to hand it back over to Charmaine.
Thank you. That was a perfect explanation. So now that you've got the ball rolling, or I guess in this case, we should say boulder, many of you may be daunted with the task of keeping it rolling. So I guess if we can kind of switch the analogy over to rolling maybe a snowball up a hill at this point. So because as you grow and as it becomes larger and larger, that's what's happening. Basically, you're growing continuously and it becomes harder to push with the continued growth, right? Which is where the strength comes in. But many things to make your life easier are listed on the screen here, and they kind of allow you to manage this growth and keep pushing that snowball. So, for example, if you look on the slide, there is like a bunch of apps that you can use in order to kind of make your life easier, to facilitate organization and also streamline the promotion of your initiative. So for example, one of the things on there, one of the apps is Slack. So that helps with team management, and it's a communication platform. So we discovered this gem, not at the beginning of our initiative, but as we kind of took some team members on, we were able to use this platform in order to communicate with each other and always keep up to date, know we're always on the same page, and it just provided a great resource for us instead of, messaging over our Gmail account or messaging on Facebook. It was a lot. Everything is in one place. So that, yes. And then also, there's several resources that you can reach out to. Like I said, just make a list of, your colleagues, more knowledgeable others, and just reach out to them if you have any questions at all. And I am positive that they would be willing to help you. And also, I guess a good point is to not be afraid to reach out to organizations, even if you don't have existing connections, because a lot of the time they would be definitely willing to talk through some things with you and provide you some advice and guidance, because they were in your shoes once too. So that's very important to do as well.
Next slide. Step number 5 is learning from mistakes. So the big what happens if I fail, because failure on some levels is inevitable. So you can go ahead a slide as well. So the first thing you need to do when something happens is stop. You need to stop and you need to think about just let it all sit. The second thing you need to do is reflect on what happened. Next slide, please. Just go ahead a couple slides. You could plan so that you know how you're going to change that mistake for the next time. And the last thing is you need to try again, because you are not defined by failure, and there's always the opportunity to change that. One little moment of failure me and Charmaine had, for example, is we only had 40 volunteers at the time, so it was a big deal to us at the time, but definitely not now, where we're sending out a newsletter, and instead of BBCing everyone so they couldn't see each other's emails, we accidentally sent it all as a main email, and a lot of people were really unhappy, and we felt horrible, and it was definitely a lesson well learned, and we've definitely taken measures to make sure that we are double checking things and making sure that doesn't happen again. So things always happen. So the last step, so you can change slides, is to grow organically. We might have this tendency to want to progress and so rapidly. And while that happened for me and Charmaine, it was under unique circumstances. We were during a global pandemic where people were eager and there was such a high demand for these kind of services. But that doesn't mean that you won't get those results. But you need to be careful to water the plant, your seedling, or stoke the fire instead of overwatering it, and because it will die out. But if you nurture it, as time goes on, your idea will become successful. And I can guarantee that because I've seen the results. So you can go to the second to last slide, and Charmaine.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you may be asking yourself, when should I start? So just get started today. Just go through those steps, start your own project. If you want to get involved by, maybe you don't feel like starting your own initiative right now, which is totally fine. You can get involved in a pre-existing project as a volunteer, because those projects also need support. That's how they grow, right? But if you'd like to get in touch with our team, the Caring and Connecting Pen Pal Initiative, you can email us. If you want to be a volunteer and write letters, the volunteer email is on the screen. But if you want to get involved in some other way or just ask us questions, please email the Caring and Connecting Initiative at gmail.com email. So we would love to have you. So thank you so much for listening to us. Next slide again. But we really appreciate your time, and we know that you will do wonderful things and move mountains.